We talked about this a bit yesterday, but I would like you guys to entertain a thought experiment. I want you to do some big brain thinking. Imagine this. You're 21. You just moved into an apartment with your three best friends, Dave, Tony, and Jeff. None of you guys know how to cook. You've never cooked before. You've never done your own laundry. Your mom has done all that for you. And now you're living on your own for the first time. You're hungry. You order a pizza. The cycle repeats over the next 4 days because you don't know how to cook. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. Bing, boom, bing, boom. There's a woman outside. She's got a big Tupperware container of freshly cooked, home-cooked chili. She hands it to you. She says, "I'm your neighbor. I thought maybe you'd like something to eat." What do? Do you A, slam the door in her face and call the police? B, accept the chili? 3, explain that she's being extremely ableist and you're going to cancel her on Twitter? What do you do, chat? A, B, or C?
I'm going to propose a fourth option. I contact the Washington Post.
Well, that did happen. So, chili neighbor discourse
Of course.
Yeah.
Democracy dies in darkness.
Democracy dies in Chile. B, you accept it gratefully. Democracy does die in darkness, but so does a pot of unwanted chili sitting in your fridge until it inevitably goes bad. Because maybe your neighbor didn't think about that you needed a dog walker, huh? Maybe you needed a dog walker. Maybe you needed a babysitter. Maybe you're in a same food period and you can only eat the same food. Maybe you don't like the taste or texture of chili and you're gonna feel guilty and leave it in there. Maybe it's the same as somebody coming up and grabbing you and saying you need help across the street and picking you up and carrying you on your back as you flail your little arms. No, stop! And they carry you across the street and they sit you down and they say, "I helped you. Give me $1."
I need somebody to come over to my apartment and wrap me in a swaddling cloth like a little baby.
To keep you from posting?
To keep me from posting and to just like rock me to sleep at night. That's what I need right now. I do have an alternative scenario.
Oh, okay. Would you invoke castle doctrine on the chili neighbor?
Now that I live in Texas, yes. But the other option is politely decline or accept it and don't eat it.
Oh.
Or 3, accept it, don't eat it, and pass it on to someone who will, or eat it.
I'm just tweeting invoking castle doctrine on the chili neighbor who tried to ableism me with food. But I'm like joking about this, but this is what we were talking about kind of yesterday about the bad faith weaponization of inclusivity language and of this sort of language designed to make things more inclusive and language less hurtful to people who are not generally included in discussions. It has become this sort of trap logic where any act can be weaponized. You can find and contort the logic into such a situation that, aha, you offered free food to your neighbors, but have you considered that doing so is ableist because of X? And this turned into this massive dogpile, right? Basically, Chinchazilla, like we said in the thought experiment, she noticed that a couple of like 20-something guys moved in next door. They didn't seem to be eating well. She assumed because they're 20-something-year-old college dudes, they probably didn't really know how to cook well. And she noticed that they were ordering pizza every single day. So she's like, I'm gonna be nice. And she cooks a big pot of chili for them and delivers it to them. All right, she tweets about it. And she gets massively dogpiled. First, she gets dogpiled by the Jai orbiters, mostly TERFs, who pile on her, calling her a freak, a predator, a sex pest, saying that she was doing it because she was secretly sexually obsessed with the young boys and wanted to fuck them because they thought she was trans. Chinchazilla is cis, but that's besides the point. I guess they can always tell, right? So the initial pile-on was TERFs, who were just wanted to be transphobic to someone because they thought she was creepy for having basic human decency and being neighborly and trying to, create human connection with her neighbors by, being helpful. And that's the thing, right? Like, maybe they don't like chili. Right? That's a possibility. Maybe they don't like chili. Maybe they won't eat it. Maybe, like, one of them's allergic to the tomatoes in it. I don't fucking know, but that's not a life or death thing.
That would all be fine.
Right, they could stay either, they could if they're really, for some reason, if any human interaction is terrifying and scary, which it is for some people, right? They can just not answer the door, or they can answer the door and say, oh, that's very kind of you, but no thank you. Or they can just take it and not eat it. But people have framed those potential situations as unfathomably cruel to the guys under the conception that what if the guys were disabled in these ways? So people have all piled on her and just come up with increasingly elaborate rhetorical and phantasmagorial situations in which her doing this, giving a pot of food to her neighbors, is increasingly onerous, increasingly cruel, increasingly outrageous. And I have some of the threads here about this, and they each one really beggars belief on how far people were willing to go for this. Like this one we saw last night. I'll share my screen. Well, you know, it's honestly really fucked up because there was a time in my life where my dog was dying and it made me like, you know, it was really shitty. And if somebody had offered me free food during then, I would have felt incredibly upset and angry at them for deigning to offer me free food when what I needed was a dog carer. How the fuck would they know that? How the fuck would they know that?
Here's another little flip side thing here. Let's just grant for the sake of argument that like, you know, maybe there's like an allergy situation or something where like they really could not accept the food. If a neighbor is willing to like cook you food, and yeah, you can't accept it. What you can actually do also is talk to them about what would actually help you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you could do that.
That could be a conversation. It could be a conversation and be like, oh, you know, I'm so thankful for this. I can't accept it for reason X, Y, Z.
What if you can't talk to people? You're kind of being really rude right now. It's like every situation, though, has but what if this situation I came up with in my mind that doesn't apply here were to happen, right? I had to get a lot of delivery for the past months because my dog was really sick and she would have lots of accidents, and my OCD was like, don't you cook food in the place full of pee air, even though we were using pads. No one had the energy to cook, etc., etc., etc. Imagine being brought a home-cooked meal by a stranger when what you really need is a dog walker or carer. How would the stranger know that? How would they know that? I would say, wow, thank you. I haven't been able to cook for myself because my dog's been so sick and I've been out of spoons. Thank you for the meal. I don't have to spend the $20 or $30 to order out tonight. How very kind of you. That's what I would say. And probably what has to be some of the most amazing reactions to it, right? So this was one of the people who got really mad and piled on. And this person got it into their head, right? So this person, right? The giving chili to your neighbor is like grabbing a stranger's wheelchair person as a landlord. So this person started the discourse by saying that giving chili to your neighbor was equivalent to grabbing a stranger's wheelchair and pushing them because you thought they needed help, or like insisting on helping an old person across the street, which makes zero sense. It's very much like grabbing someone's wheelchair and trying to help by pushing them as a total stranger. No, it's not. It's actually absolutely, literally nothing like that.
It's nothing even comparable to
It's
that.
literally nothing like that. It's literally like 0% like
I
that.
actually think you're the one doing ableism when you attempt to make that comparison.
Seriously. Yes.
Comparison.
Like, this is like grabbing a wheelchair without a person's consent or deciding the elderly person standing at the street must be waiting for help to cross. No, it's not. It's literally nothing like that. It's literally just being neighborly. It's nothing like that. Thank you for the thread. I'm sorry, I picked the wrong side of the discourse. I should have been criticizing how she put diced carrots into chili and how weird it is to bring carrot chili to neighbors she watched but didn't talk to. I lost sight of the real evils here of using the same shit you use to make vegetable stock in chili. I failed my followers. I didn't know it was chili. I'm so sorry. I should have cared more about the poor animal that had to die to become a carrots and way too many onions chili. Had I known it was supposed to be chili, I would have made a different thread. But wait, let me get through this and then let me show you the picture of the chili again, and you can tell me if it's carrot chili or not. I'd have made a different thread about how disrespectful it is to bring your white people cooking bullshit with you to feed strangers, and I had made fun of the way she deserved for cooking raisins in potato salad version of chili. What the fuck are you talking about? To be fair, there wasn't a stewed tomato in sight. No indication of it being chili, and now I'm gonna make fun of her like she deserves for throwing a bunch of shit in a pot and calling it chili, because that's what it was. Why is it that white people who love to bastardize old recipes always make the dish worse, are always the most deeply racist white people you could ever meet? Now she's just calling her racist. Is there something about racism and destroying food? Literally just calling this person Chinchilla racist for making chili. I can't even be mad about the dog pile. Knowing that it was chili just makes the whole thing fucking silly. This is your queen, the queen of carrots and chili. Do you know how fucking mushy tiny cubed carrots get when they're steamed and then stewed? She really cooked a meal my 7-year-old could have made better, and anyone who wants to waste 1 second of their limited time on the planet defending this dish has lost the fucking plot. In my day, we took food to our neighbors and would have offered thank you even if it was a culinary nightmare my dog wouldn't have eaten.
That's what she did.
I know. No, this is real, and it keeps going. This is not self-satirical. Reading that shit knowing it was chili with cubed carrots is really something. Also, if true, when was your day? Because I'm almost 40 and from the South, and if anyone brought me, my parents, I knew it at 10, 20, or 30 years ago, chili with cubed carrots in it, they'd have given a condescending bless your heart or probectia in response. Never going to let people who think cubed carrots is in chili fine tell me what's normal. Never, ever keep your cursed food and worst opinions out of my face. So straight up, this person is calling her racist for what she thinks she did with her chili, saying like, oh, racist white people always, white people who make worse white people versions of food are always incredibly racist. Here's the funny part. There were no carrots in the chili. There are no carrots in there. Those are bell peppers and onions. And obviously there was tomato in it. It's chili. It just wasn't in this step.
Trolley problems in the chat. Checking my carbon monoxide detector right now. None of you are using mercury as a cooling solution, right?
This person, I'm just gonna say, this person is clearly cooling their PC with mercury. So there were no carrots in the chili. For the record, there were tomatoes, but the tomatoes go in a different step. Sorry for not photographing the entire process. I will do better. So this poor woman has been dogpiled by hundreds of people, ended up in the Washington Post because she wanted to bring chili to her neighbors.
Well, no, that's incorrect. She ended up in the Washington Post because democracy dies in darkness, horse.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, other people calling her, saying that she's acting like a white savior for bringing chili to her neighbor. Like, what? What are you talking about? Okay, so this is where it gets amazing.
Right before you get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Just like thinking back to that last post.
Her neighbors ate the chili.
My favorite part about whatever that rant, you want to call that rant, was her saying that, you know, sometimes we'll bring our neighbors food and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's literally the situation.
Yeah, no, and it's so funny, though, because people have completely lost their mind over this. And I would like to remind everyone, for all the people who piled on for over self-described concerns of ableism, this was a dog pile started by fucking transphobes because they thought she was trans. And they thought it was disgusting and terrifying that a trans woman was stalking young boys to prey on them, which is literally the original thing. The original narrative was that this was bad because she was not doing this out of the kindness of her heart to be neighborly. She was actually doing it because she's trans and therefore a sexual predator, and she wanted to have sex with the young boys, the 20-year-old, 22-year-old guys, so she was making them chili and stalking them in order to get in their pants. That was the initial dog pile. And then when Other people wanted to get in. They're obviously like, well, I can't take that line, but I want to get in on the discourse and dunk on her. So let's talk about ableism. If I want to make fucked up assumptions about inauthentic ingredients, what does that say about the landlords and their screed about the stewed tomatoes when northern Mexican chili does not have tomatoes? Very good. Defenseless neighbor. Oh, but if you guys think that's silly, we are about to get into the ultimate Twitter thread on ableism related to the chili discourse. Ableism has ceased to have, like, any fucking meaning at this point. Like, zero. Someone wrote a thread about this, about all the 100 myriad ways bringing chili to your neighbor could be ableist. You want to guess how many words it has, chat?
I'm scared, Horace.
Okay, so it's a Twitter thread. Remember, maximum 240 characters per per tweet. Drum roll, please. 1,726 words long. That is the length of a college essay. The Internet Ableism Catechism. Let's show you guys somebody scrolling through this thread at max speed. I'm loving that it ends with a tweet that just says, shut up. Okay, so this is what the thread looks like when zoomed out. This is what the thread looks like when zoomed out. There's so much stuff that when she tried, that Skeptical's Lawful Spice tried to put it in a tweet, Twitter no longer can render the pixels because it's just too big for Twitter to handle nowadays. Yeah, I read theory.
Yeah, because they got a crack team at Twitter right now.
That's right. Maybe you personally would have been thrilled to have a neighbor turn up with a big old pot of chili. But here's a possibility that you can't eat chili for some dietary reason. Sure, that's possible. Or you can't eat that chili because of the ingredients. That's also fine. That's possible. Or you don't have bowls. That's why you always eat pizza. Okay, eat it out of the thing. Are you serious? Those are not reasons it's ableist. Maybe you don't have the time for dishes, and having someone bring a big vessel of chili is making more work for you. Oh, shut up! Maybe you're in a same foods period, and the chili is going to go to waste. Okay, it's still a nice gesture. Maybe you're literally not going to be home, and the neighbor is going to be pissed to have made all that chili and have it go to waste, which is no fault of yours, but it would have saved your neighbor a lot of waste if they asked for. Oh my God, stop. I eat many frozen dinners because I'm in year 3 of autistic burnout and I have no energy to cook. I also have moved to disposable dishes and flatware because I don't have the energy to clean dishes regularly. So let's pretend you're a new neighbor who sees all my empty frozen dinner boxes in the trash. Let's pretend you made me a surprise squash soup. I don't think anyone ever really makes squash soup, but okay. And came over with a refusable container and knocked on my door smiling. You didn't know I hated squash because you didn't ask. Okay, now I'm thinking, OMG, shit, I have to talk to them, I have to smile, I have to be nice. Ooh, gross, squash soup, what the fuck am I gonna do with this? OMG, did my face show that? I don't want to hurt this person's feelings, they're being nice. Oh my God, it doesn't matter that much. I'm thinking, okay, what do I do with this soup? I don't want to just throw it out, but I hate squash and I won't eat it. It's going to go to waste. I live alone. Then I'm going to have to clean out this container and return it. This is so much work. I feel bad.
Pour it out.
Strangers don't generally bring me surprise food. I don't have a ready-made script in my head for what to say and how to look in the right tone to turn down their offer, to share the thing with me without hurting their feelings.
Horace, I'm a neighbor cooking food for each other accelerationist. I think more neighbors should. People should have more community with each other.
I think they should too. Literally, this is all just like compounding theoretical problems in her head. Just what if this and what if that and what if that? And that's how this entire discourse has been, is compounding theoretical situations in which the nice gesture of bringing food is actually oppressive. I get the practicing situations, like as someone like on the spectrum, I get practicing like how to react to something in your head. So no, I don't have the energy to say no thanks, because that's not how my brain handles these things. I'd also not be entirely grateful for a stranger who thought of me enough to make me surprise food, because if they were really thinking of me as a person instead of an object to ask on, they would have asked first. No, that's being neighborly. Have you heard of when you move in, people like bring pastries and cookies and pies? That's a thing. But still, I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
hurt their feelings. And as a disabled person who needs to ask for help a lot, I am fully so aware that people tend to react badly to having the one kind of help they want to offer turned down. It is very rarely we get the help that we need. Fair enough. This is why it pushes buttons.
What's fascinated me about this, and I think what's actually got it so much traction, is that it's very representative of this completely like American / capitalist ideology that we all have to be completely atomized at all times. We have to be so atomized. We are nothing but isolated little individuals, and anything else is a threat.
Main character syndrome, and you are the most important person. And so as a result, every potential scenario of you need to be thought of. Like, you have to consider every possible scenario. But really, this feels like somebody who wants to be right. And she is weaponizing disability and ableism discourse to come up with 1,000 different absurd, really specific niche theoretical scenarios in which she would be vindicated and being mad about someone bringing her food. Come on, it's a bowl of chili. It's a bowl of chili. She was being nice. She grew the peppers and onions in her yard. She cooked them and she gave them to the neighbor because she wanted to be nice. There's no carrots in it.
Like, I think this is a clear case of ableism.
Oh, ableism. I think we need to come up with a new form of ableism discourse that is so absurd, so toxic, so niche, and unfalsifiable that, like, I tweeted this, that I'm gonna come up with a new form of ableism discourse that's so cursed and unfalsifiable that cities crumble, and anyone who takes one look at the discourse instantly goes mad and gouges out their eyes like Oedipus. That the government will have to send a team of professionally trained assassins wearing blinders to keep them from seeing any of my posts, to come to my house and assassinate me before I can tweet again.
But this also goes back to what we were talking about yesterday. Is in the process of all this, one, it is a symptom of just like this completely atomized, individualist theory of the world. That is an ideological standpoint. It is incredibly ideological. But two, in the process of doing all this, actually devalues real concerns and real things that need to be accounted for. If people are like allergic to something, they can politely decline and say so, or whatever. It doesn't like like most people are pretty understanding about that stuff. It's just communicating with each other.
For one, you can do something else with the food. Like, I had heard a little bit about this discourse in the past few days, but I hadn't had time to actually like really look at it. And I looked at it today, and I kind of like mauled it on Twitter a little bit about it because it was upsetting. And like, you know, it's like Ellie and I kind of had the same thoughts about this. It's like, you can get rid of the chili.
He was also saying like the effort required to pour the chili out and clean the thing is also a massive oppressive.
I did not know it got that deep.
Yeah, no, it literally did. Deep. And it was saying like, oh, but what if you just don't eat it, you know? And she was like, well, what if I don't like the texture? What if I'm in a same foods period and I can't eat it because it's not the same food I want because I'm in burnout? What if, you know, I don't use plates or forks because it's too much effort to clean. What if I don't like the texture and I can't eat it, and now I have to deal with the scenario of figuring out how to talk to the neighbor and politely decline or politely accepting it and being worried the whole time because I don't have a script on how to interact, and I'm worried it'll show in my face that I'm upset that I don't like the dish, and now I have to deal with all the extra work of pouring it out, cleaning out the dish, and returning it, which is a huge imposition on me. And it's like, yeah, sure, I get that, but come on, it's fucking chili. The neighbor's trying to be nice to you. It's not that big of a deal.
We actually have a cultural context in the United States, like a cultural meme very similar to this that goes back decades. It was the concept of people giving each other fruitcake that everyone universally hated and threw out. But it was like, okay, well, thank you for giving me that. I'm not going to eat it, but like it's been a thing in American society for the longest time.
Yeah, I mean, and it's still, there's also like the gesture, like that's kind of what
that's
counts
kind of
for
a
me.
huge part of it is the gesture of doing so. But
and I agree with Ellie too. Just the idea of I would rather I would like for neighbors to cook each other food more often. Like I think that's like a nice thing too. Like it's just a weird discourse about like a problem that's not a
That's
real
not a
problem.
problem. Well, it's once again
And
people
yeah,
want to be upset.
communicate your needs. It's fine.
Yes.
That's actually good. That's actually
yes,
good.
It is good to communicate your needs, but ultimately what this comes down to online is that within the sectors of the social justice discourse communities online, there is a tendency to want to be the most correct and to have the most nuanced, impossible nuanced take. And this woman, she started her thread, or they started their thread with the line, "It's time for impossible nuance," because I think this needs impossible nuance to it. So there's this tendency of this impossible nuance and a desire to be the most correct and have the most considerate take and think of the most situations and concerns and to be the most right. And it leads to people to just like these absurd places where, here, this is what it starts with. I completely missed the chili consent thing, but I actually get the wheelchair analogy. I don't necessarily agree to, but I get it. This could be my very last chance to do the Twitter impossible nuance, so I carped some Dion. It also makes a lot more sense if you ignore the second half of the tweet that says, "Or deciding an elderly person crossing the street must want help." And it's just like, right, so people want to be correct. They want to be the ones who have the most inclusive, most correct, most nuanced take on any individual thing, and it leads people to play this infinite game of rhetorical leapfrog where they just get more upset and more upset at people for, "Hey, did you not consider this situation? Did you not consider this situation?" Right? Yelling at someone for using a slur, yelling at someone for not having inclusive language or inclusive behavior or, whatever. That's great. This is not that. This is wanting to be mad. This is wanting to weaponize inclusivity language in order to go after someone, to dunk on them on Twitter. That's what this is. It is doing this for the sake of the blood sport.
Yeah, and when I saw this earlier, like I was shitposting a little bit about like this, all the stupid things that could be considered ableism, and like chili itself is ableist and stuff. But like, it really does upset me because like I don't talk about it a ton in public, but I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I have executive dysfunction. Like a lot of times getting stuff done is actually hard for me. And when I see people talk about ableism like this, it's like, dude, you're watering it down and making something that's already hard for people to acknowledge. Like I've experienced like actual ableism from the shit that I go through of people telling me, "Oh, I just need to try harder." And it's like, dude, that's not how that works. And then you have dipshits like this. The part that pisses me off about this the most is like, you can tell that they're just weaponizing it. And it's just a weapon to them that like they don't actually, like they just want to be right. They just want a fucking excuse to hound somebody.
Yes.
And
this is
it hurts all of us in the end. I mean, it's literally just wait, it's literally in the fucking Washington Post at this point.
So the discourse moved in a couple phases here. So the first phase of the discourse was TERFs dogpiling her in a case of mistaken identity, believing her to be trans, and believing that it was creepy and terrifying because they thought they saw her as a predatory trans woman trying to prey on these vulnerable young men and, I don't know, maybe pink pill them or something. Then feminist discourse from the TERFs adjacent community came in and said, "You're setting women back. You're reinforcing gender roles. You're cooking for some random man. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're setting women back. How dare you reinforce gender roles by cooking for a man and making yourself subservient." And then the consent discourse came, and then the consent discourse about how gifting non-consensually then turned into ableism discourse. So this
non-consensual chili.
Non-consensual chili gifting. So this is
Horace, I have to interrupt you for a moment, just because this is a golden comment from chat. From coercible germ, Netflix and chili.
Netflix and chili. Yeah, wanna be full and stain your favorite shirt. But like, yes, chat. Like this is argumentum ad absurdum, right? This is just like this rhetorical scaffolding to come up with more and more absurd takes on who can be the most technically correct. And in acting this way, right, in needling, in having impossible nuance, in dogpiling, in coming up with more and more absurd rhetorical abstractions that prove why you're the most inclusive, why you're the most right, why you're the smartest and most correct, that under liberalism feels like activism. You are doing something. You are changing the discourse. You are proving your merit and worth and your moral fortitude by owning and saying, "Aha! You thought giving chili was good, but have you considered asking for consent? Aha! You are reinforcing gender roles. Aha! What if they can't eat the chili? Now they have to clean the dish. Didn't think of that, did you?
I just wanted to say that I am like, I mean, I know we're all sick and tired of this shit, but like, I am so fucking exhausted to the point where like, I can't even like just combat this shit anymore. Like, you know, to echo what Ellie and Neko have said, I mean, a little bit already, it's just like, not only is this just completely innate, it makes things so much more difficult for people who are like, who like actually have problems to talk about their problems. I mean, it takes away from talking about anything that's like actually important. I don't see anybody on my timeline talking about the Indian Child Welfare Act being in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is full of like a bunch of Catholic accelerationist freaks. But everybody wants to talk about the new flavor of discourse of the week because that's more entertaining.
Yes, it is.
And I'm sorry that like doing actual leftist shit isn't funny enough for you, but people are dying, people are having their lives ruined. Like, there are so many people who you are just actively ignoring because you want to get your dunks in on Twitter. There's no end to it. And like, as a disabled person myself, like, it has taken me fucking years to like come to terms with the fact that I am disabled and I can't do all the shit that I used to anymore. And even the shit that I used to do, I couldn't do it properly anyways. You know, well, like, quote unquote properly. On the other end of the spectrum, like, I've seen way too many leftists just kind of like turn on a dime and just be like, I mean, and just make fun of any mention of ADHD or like autism, right? And it's extremely fucking alienating, and it's extremely disheartening seeing people just wholesale dismiss the like very real issues because some dumbasses on the internet decided to make it about themselves.
One of the reasons I think this is getting as much traction as it is because it feels like such a jump the shark moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's so absurd. You can see through it so clearly that we can finally have this conversation of, no, this is not the way to talk about ableism. This is not the way, this is not how anything works.
Every single time this discourse pops up, I like me and like several other people have this conversation about how absolutely fucking absurd this all is.
Yep.
This is the same, we keep having the same conversations over and over and over again, and it might feel like jumping the shark now because like it's the end of days or whatever, but like this has been happening for years. It's been happening for decades online, or at least for the last decade.
Totally.
I
mean, this was like a Tumblr thing back in the day.
Oh, it was a huge Tumblr
thing. The impossible nuance
was
always a Tumblr thing.
It was a live journal thing. It was a blogspot thing. Like, this has been happening for years.
Well, once again, because being the most correct is praxis.
Like I recognize a lot of people from Tumblr who are pulling the same shit on Tumblr that are doing shit now on Twitter. It's because it's not actually about like a disability justice. It's about winning. It's about being the most correct person.
Yes.
It's about control.
Yeah.
Like, half these people like have their own little like cults of personalities around them, right? and if they aren't the center of a cult of personality,
they want to be.
Yeah. Excuse you, horse.
Sorry, I was calling weirdly.
I'm probably a pot calling the kettle black because sometimes I do jump in and comment, and I'm just like, this is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. But like, I have been trying my best to not get into it because I do not want to give it any more power.
Too bad.
Yeah, but it's already, we're still talking about it. Like, the fact that we're talking about it right now is a fucking problem because we could be talking about so many other fucking things.
We could be.
Like, yeah, we could. I mean, Horse, I know this isn't what your stream is for. I'm just like talking about the general we as leftists, but like, we could be like doing like a theory reading group or something right now, right? Like, we could be doing an infinite number of other things that would be significantly more, exponentially more beneficial to society and ourselves than sitting here talking about this.
Yeah, we could.
I actually have a split take here. Because on one side, I do agree with you, Blastoise.
Yeah,
but I think the transparency of just how obvious this all is actually makes it useful.
So anyways, a woman made chili for her neighbors and outrage ensued. Was she wrong? Amazing that the Washington Post deigned to write an article about the Twitter chili discourse.
Must be a slow news day.
Recently, a woman posted a thread on Twitter of her plans to make and deliver a pot of chili to her neighbors. Uh-oh. A group of young men who, according to her, judging from their stream of delivery pizza, she thought might appreciate a homemade meal. Commenters began feasting on the virtual dish. Some saw it as imposing, presumptuous. I don't know how to feel if a stranger came by my house with a meal I didn't ask for, one wrote. And some wondered, what if they had allergies? Shut the fuck up! Don't eat it! Some took their critique further. One accused her of coddling and encouraging man-child behavior. This was the feminism, you're setting back feminism 100 years discourse. One attributed her generosity to a white savior complex. And why not? Some wondered. Ask if help her neighbors really wanted before making assumptions. The outrage flowed in the other direction, with people slamming the critics. The social media food fight left us exhausted, but also wondering, have the rules for giving home-cooked meals changed? Does the simple act of baking a casserole or cookies for a stranger have to be so fraught? The answer is no. We asked 2 experts for guidance. Notably, they did not contact her for her take on the situation. Instead, they contacted etiquette experts.
What kind of experts do you talk to in a situation like this?
Laura Malcolm, the founder-in-chief of Give in Kind, a service that allows users to organize meal trains and other support, so I'm guessing this is kind of like a Meals on Wheels app, says that while gift cards for meal delivery services have become popular, plenty of people still like getting home-cooked meals from others. You don't say. I mean, think about it. For example, like when there's a death in the family, it's extremely common for people to prepare food for others because it's helpful, it's kind, and people who are going through loss might not have the time to cook for themselves. But, I digress. The practice of greeting new neighbors with baskets of cookies and a barrage of casseroles might not be as common as it once was, but it's hardly extinct. It's cultural and regional, but there are absolutely communities where it still happens. Think of all the hot dish in the Midwest. Yeah, no shit. People might be warier than ever of their neighbors thanks to next-door culture, which can foster petty disputes and suspicion, and many may be more mindful of dietary restrictions and allergies. Nick Layton, host of the Etiquette podcast, Were You Raised by Wolves? Yes, I told you they got an etiquette expert, a guy who runs an etiquette podcast. However, they did not contact Chinchilla. Great.
Hilarious.
Notes that it was deemed normal. That it being deemed normal depends on where you live. Etiquette is local. I live in Manhattan, and people don't do pop in here. It's not a thing. Where possible, you might initiate contact with your intended recipient first. Malcolm suggests avoiding a generic question like, can I do anything to help? Because the most typical response is no. Try something like, can I drop off a dinner for you on Tuesday, she says. Or can I walk your dog for you if someone has trouble getting around? No, it's weird to bring someone food on first contact, but it's far less weird to show up, to meet someone for the first time, and ask to take their dog. Hey, can I help by taking your dog? You've never met me before. You don't know who I am. I promise I'll bring your dog back. Well, that's not less weird than food. Yeah.
I'm just gonna stop by tomorrow. I'm just gonna take Jade.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We're gonna take the cat for a walk.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Okay. Where possible, you might initiate contact. Right. She says, or can I walk your dog for you? If it's someone who has trouble getting around, you can ask about their preferences or dietary restrictions. The chili-making woman did make assumptions about her neighbors, which might have irked people online, Malcolm notes. It's great to take things into consideration. Wow, when offering any kind of help, she says. But I don't think we want to lose the idea that you can show up and see if a thing needs, if there's a need, and offer something, whether that need really exists. Layton notes that it doesn't matter what someone's private reasons are for offering a gift. What's important is how it's presented. In the case of the chili, there was potentially judgment. The motivation was they don't know how to cook or they needed it. And that's why people jumped on it, he says. if she told them that that when she gave it to them, I don't love it, he says, but if she said, I made too much chili, here you go, it's fine. Well, by the way, they do not note anywhere in this so far that the guys gratefully accepted the chili and ate all of it, and it was normal. Nobody died. No matter what you make, it's best to offer it in a container that you don't need back, which just creates an errand for the recipient. And it's best if it's something they can slip in the freezer if they can't eat right away. Wow, such good etiquette. If you make and give someone food, you have to accept they might turn around and pitch it in the trash. Yeah, no shit. Where was she saying, like, I'm gonna kill them if they don't eat it all and smile? But that's no reason not to do it, or
That would
shame those
actually
who
be
do.
perfectly fine.
Yeah, it'd be perfectly fine. Or shame those who do. Though in big disasters such as hurricanes, people send packages of blankets and teddy bears that aren't needed, where a diner leaving a restaurant might give her leftovers to an unhoused person who doesn't want them. But even though the outcome isn't what the giver intended, those impulses should be nurtured regardless, Malcolm says. Do we really want to cut that off just because there might be waste, she asked. Altruism can't always be efficient, but do we want to cut back on well-meaningness? If you're on the receiving end of an unsolicited food delivery, there's only one way to respond, and that's the never goes out of style, thank you, even if eating it would make you break out in hives. A recipient should accept gratefully, even if it's not the right thing, like the sweater is the
Okay,
wrong
I actually
side.
have to interrupt you here. One, the notion of altruism needing to be efficient,
It's
it
so
goes,
stupid.
it's completely ridiculous.
Yes.
And it goes back to this notion I was talking about earlier of this is the product of an ideological brain disease of thinking we all are atomized individuals.
Yes.
And the notion that like altruism or looking out for a neighbor or something needs to be perfectly economically efficient
Yes.
is only possible in a capitalist framework. It's ridiculous.
It's
at
absurd.
Face value.
People wanted to do impossible nuance, right? And that's exactly what this is just continuing the trend of impossible nuance. And my God, it is extremely stupid. This is extremely asinine. Who cares about efficiency? Be neighborly, be kind, get to know people in your community, engage with them. It's not like a crisis. It's not oppressive to give someone a gift. Like, come on, man.
And sometimes you get shitty gifts.
Sometimes you
That's
get shitty
fine.
gifts, right? Like, I saw somebody comparing, like, this whole thing to, like, you know, getting a gift they didn't want from their grandma. They're like, my grandma gives me socks. Like, I didn't consent to getting socks. I don't want socks. You know, like, is that oppressive? And the person who was, like, complaining about the chili is like, no, that's totally different because you consented to getting a gift from your grandma. And they're like, no, I literally didn't. I didn't say, grandma, I want socks. It's an unwanted gift. But does that mean I'm going to yell at her and call it oppressive? Like, no. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this discourse is pointless. It is extremely stupid, and the people doing this are weaponizing ableism discourse to have impossible nuance, to feel like they're doing something, to be the most correct, to have the most activist and most nuanced take, and ultimately, this is extremely harmful. It fosters division, it fosters backbiting and just terrible behavior online. Like, it's not good. We shouldn't encourage this kind of stupid ass nuance. We should see other people as people. We should treat them as human beings, and, you know, even if you don't want the chili, even if it's an imposition, whatever, be thankful that someone cares about you and is trying to build a connection with you.